Hey, Smith. Thanks for the intro. Excited to be here and excited to kick this off.
Yeah, absolutely, Abhinav. So I guess the best way to kick this off is by asking you. Look, this is probably the world's first and definitely the biggest API conference that is focused on students and educators. So why do you think APIs are so valuable for students?
I think that's a great question to start with, Smith. We believe that APIs are the fundamental building block of all modern software. And I think we are at a point now where we are seeing almost every company, every organization, whether it is internal to that organization or external to that organization, they're all publishing APIs. And while that change in the world is happening, just focused on APIs. We also believe that students are the builders for the next generation, right? People who are in colleges and schools today are going to be building, pretty soon if they're not already. And, I started coding when I was in school, and I thought, I was I was ahead of the curve, but now I see, millions of students, whether, their branch is computer science or not, they're building amazing things already. And we believe that APIs are the fuel in their creativity. And what we are doing is basically a small part in basic bringing these APIs to life, and kind of on this end of the spectrum, helping students and colleges discover what they can do. So I'm extremely excited about our student program. I think the enthusiasm that the community has had is infectious. And I know we started at PostCon a couple of years ago, when we met the first batch of students had come to the conference. And since that point onwards, I think we saw how critical this initiative is going to be. Um, so going back to APIs, we see today some amazing APIs, whether it's SaaS software where students can build out applications, whether it is for their own use case or for people around them. We see APIs being kind of like uh, they are the providers of data. Whether you're looking at stuff around climate change, or if you recently see, because of the ongoing pandemic, kind of all the data that is kind of coming uh, in front of us is actually powered by APIs, and those things are very critical, for the modern world. So knowing about APIs, being able to work with them, being able to leverage them for the future, I think is extremely critical. And that's why we are hosting this student summit and our student program.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if we were to take a slight step back, right? Today, Postman has, over 17 million users, and, it is the leading API platform. But I think a lot of people who are watching this probably don't know the journey of Postman. So I know you've, shared this in many different avenues, but just if you can give us a quick summary of, how did you actually come up with the idea of Postman?
Yeah, so I've been, as I said, right, I've been a developer for a pretty long time. My first computer was something I got in like fifth grade, and my father and I grew up in India, so it was a new thing. Back then, nobody had a computer around us, and it was kind of like this magic kind of wonderland that I kind of got sucked into. And I started building applications in Flash, ActionScript, HTML, PHP, back then. And it was just, I mean, a lot of fun. And I don't think it was part of any structured curriculum. I think in my school they were still teaching Logo and Basic, right? So all of this was very exciting for me. So I kind of got hooked on then. And over time, I realized that I was, building more and more, web applications, because it was the best way to reach more and more people with something that you had created. So, we I think for people in the student summit, it would be like, I don't know whether they still remember CDs and DVDs, but you would get like these, discs to install software, and it'll take like thousands of dollars, and installation times to get access to software. And on this end, we saw the power of the web that was just exploding. So I started building web applications, and I started doing, consulting projects for others, which led me to, build products. And I think what I realized was that not only I was building products for the web, but I was also doing it for, mobile devices in 2010, and, Android and iOS kind of exploded around that time frame. So all of this led me to Yahoo in Bangalore, where I kind of first formally learned the notion of an API. And I was a student then. It was my first formal internship. Actually, it was my second formal internship, but the first kind of long term one. And my mentor just took me aside one day, and he said that, hey, let me tell you something about REST APIs. And I was like, oh, now some real training starts. So I kind of learned about APIs then, but what I realized was that I was actually building APIs, for a very long time. And as we started working together on the projects that were there at Yahoo, and that's where I met Ankit. I think Ankit's going to be speaking tomorrow. So I met Ankit then, and we realized that a majority of our work was API driven, but the tools for doing that were not really designed for APIs. So that idea, kind of stayed in our heads for a while, and I started to build my first company prior to Postman. And I saw the same problem there, that we were building all these different applications. They were all powered by APIs, and the same challenge that I had at Yahoo appeared there. So I said, it's been, let's see what's out there to help me solve for this. And it didn't find anything that I liked. And my problems were very simple. Like, I wanted to debug APIs, I wanted to document them, I wanted to share them with my teammates. And that's how the idea came about. And I just was a weekend project to begin with. Those weekends were then successfully combined into several months of like early development. And I was having a lot of fun. And I chose Chrome apps as the technology because I was familiar with the web. And we still needed something that could work like a desktop application. So all these things kind of came together, and that's how the first version came about. And I mean, since the moment it was out, the reception was just fantastic. I had my first feature request was submitted by somebody from Google, then somebody from, I think, the East Coast, some hospital chain, and that's where it kind of things started taking off.
Yeah, and just kind of going along that journey. So we have collected questions from our students, and one of the questions that came along those lines is from Abir, and he asks, what are the financial challenges that you faced when you scaled from being a Chrome extension to this $2 billion unicorn that it is today?
It's been a fantastic journey. And still sometimes feels surreal to believe, but you're here and I'm here, so I think it's been pretty amazing. And but if I go back, so my first company was Bootstrapped for a while, and we were working in my dad had an apartment, and my family had an apartment in Noida in India. And we were just like, we were basically not paying rent. We were just working there and, kind of eating the Indian equivalent of ramen, I guess. And, just coding. So it took us a while to raise, some money, but essentially, let's just say that, we didn't basically, we were on that bare minimum part in the first company. So when I decided to move on, I didn't really have a financial cushion, and I didn't want to go to my parents and be like, hey, this thing that I've been trying for the last 3 years is not working out, and I've already been living where at this place, so could you lend me some money? So I didn't want to do that. And I moved to Bangalore in 2013, and I basically looked at that window as like, okay, how much rent I have. So that was my, kind of cash situation. And I was like, okay, how do I extend that? And I basically looked at, okay, I got to pay rent, I got to, eat food, and make sure the bank balance doesn't dip below a certain point. So I think it was like $2,000 or something if I calculate back in dollars at that time. So I moved on, and it's a funny story. Not a funny story now. I remember it. So I decided that I'm going to go live with Ankit for a few weeks, and Ankit was in Bombay then, and Postman was kind of out, so I was not making any money. We tried donations, but they were like very few and far between. So we decided to uh, let some companies sponsor the project, and I started on the bus rides, hoping something will happen in the next few months. And by the time the bus ride ended, I got my first sponsor. I think it was Restlet back then. I don't know whether the company was bought out. So until that point, things were pretty dire, I must say. And then later on, I took on a consulting project to help pay the bills for like a couple of days a week. I would work on that consulting project, and then the rest of the days I would code on Postman. So yeah, it was. I mean, it was. Things started looking back up after that. And Ankit had a job, and his financial decision was also pretty hard because he had to quit, a decent paying job with a career trajectory, and I was starting from the ground up. So I felt like in some ways he had a harder decision, to take. Ankit and Abhijit probably had a harder decision to take to leave, leave something that was paying well. And I was like, I mean, the only way to go from here is up.
Yeah, I think so. Would you say like making sure that you're not taking that like, hey, I'm gonna go all in, and I don't even care if I don't have food to eat, was something that you would look back and make sure that you don't repeat that mistake? Or is there anything else that you would say you would advise a younger Abhinav when he was starting Postman?
I think, looking back at it, I think I should have started sooner. Is the thing that I probably would do. Uh, I feel because of my experience in, kind of I was living, what is the quote unquote like startup, life, and all of that was good. Like it was hard earned scars, but I felt like it took me some time to actually understand the opportunity. And now, of course, we don't let an opportunity like that go even in a small section of the community. Um, so working long hours and all of that is definitely not healthy. I would have probably taken better care of myself. I should have, and when I look at some of my photos, I'm like, oh, okay, who's this guy? So, but yeah, I think and the recent conversations, especially during the pandemic, is how mental health and physical health, kind of take a beating. I think I would have done that a bit differently. And I mean, I did follow that, as we as founders did follow that in Postman later on. But yeah, I think we saw the opportunity. It took us some time, but yeah, we didn't have to be in that situation exactly.
Yeah, I think mental health is super critical, especially now we're in a remote first world today. So
Yeah.
that's a very good point. And so I guess transitioning off of the story, coming on to some Postman product specific things, like there is a question from one of our students, Jada. She asked, "What is your favorite feature of Postman?"
Hmm. It's a hard one. There are so many awesome things that, I remember people loving and I love them too. I think uh, the best feature I like is the scripting environment. That's where I remember Postman went from being a GUI tool to a dynamic environment that could be manipulated, whether it was working with APIs or manipulating Postman itself. And I'll tell the story behind it. It was a hack that I coded because so I'll tell you kind of what happened, and if I can recount it in the right way. So a feature request came in one day to say that, hey, can Postman doesn't support the management of requests of more than 1,000 requests in a collection. And people who are familiar with Postman would know what a collection is. So I was like, why are you putting like 1,000 requests inside a collection? And it was apparently a test suite that somebody was writing, and they had to change out like a particular variable across each of those requests. But that was the process that they were following in her company, and Postman was a standardized like tool for this use case. I was like, that's a very hard thing for you to do. So instead of looking at making that particular feature request happen, I thought, maybe there's a better way to, automate this thing. And I coded up, a simple like sandbox environment. And because Postman was based in JavaScript, so I was like, yeah, if we actually have like a couple of events before and after, and we have some element of state transfer from request to request, you would actually have like a couple of requests and just loop through them. I actually didn't realize like how important that decision would become, and it kind of was the seeding ground for a lot of automation work that happened in Postman after. And as a developer, I loved it because we like automating stuff. We don't like doing repeated things, and I think that became like a very unique differentiating Postman superpower. There is a leap of like knowledge that you have to go, but we try to keep the sandbox very simple. Like Python, there are batteries included in Postman, and you can get started with very few lines of code. And I think my happiest memories of feedback have been that when people come in and say that, hey, Postman changed my life because I coded for the first time. And even though it would be one line of code that they'd write, it was like special for them. And that, I think, it can scale up to like thousands of endpoints and very complex pieces too. But I remember that as my most favorite feature.
Got it. And just along those lines, there's a question from Morty. So does Postman want to continue working in the API space, or would it branch out to other tools?
I think we'll see where our community takes us. We believe that we are still in the early phases of solving for what we call like this API first journey. There are a lot of things for us to do, and we are very excited about what we are building for this decade. So we have more protocols to support. We have more interesting features to add. But in case if there are critical blockers for developers or anyone in our community that they feel and Postman can address those, then we look at it. So far, we still feel like we have a lot to do within APIs.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a question from Karthike. He asked, what is the business model of Postman?
It's very simple, to be honest. We give away most of our features for free because we want everyone to leverage, the power of APIs. So, Postman, the app is free. We recently actually opened up our collaboration features for free as well for up to 3 people inside a team. So, what we discovered, Smith, was that when developers are working inside larger organizations, they have to, standardize on certain processes. They have to collaborate better, and those aspects of the product are things that, where we are providing a business value to people, and that's something that, we could charge for. So we offer subscription-based products on a monthly or an annual pricing, and we have three tiers, today: team, business, and enterprise. And depending on what your needs are, you would fall in one of those tiers. So for, while for developers, Postman will always be free. When it comes to organizations, those are things that we charge for.
Yeah, and so just so the students who are watching, Postman still has a free plan that all of you can use. I know there has been some confusion by some students, so that is now answered by Abhinav, that we still have a free plan, and I think we continue to do so for at least the foreseeable future.
Forever.
Yeah,
I think
forever.
we'll always have the free plan. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. Now, as far as like features are concerned, there was a question from Jacob. When is the full screen option coming for the Visualize tab?
I'll answer it in a different way. We believe the ability to visualize API data is a very, very critical feature. And not only do we want to let people visualize, things in different ways. I think visualizations will be embeddable, they'll be publishable, and as part of that, we will also, look at these things. One of the most interesting things that we have seen is that how with the feature, people are able to express creatively, what APIs are. And I've been blown away by some of the things that, students have done, and by what our developer community has done. And there used to be like this dividing line between, front-end developers or business owners about, oh, hey, what are APIs? And now developers can actually show, that impact. So, I think there is a long-term roadmap here, and I'm very, very excited about what's going to come up in the roadmap there. And I'm sure as part of that, our teams will take this as a big feature request, and in the next student summit, maybe we can demo it during the summit.
Yeah, and
maybe not that long. Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of roadmap, I think so. There was a question from Praful, and he asked, "Are there any plans to add support for custom community-made plugins and extensions for Postman?"
We continue to hear that as a big request, and I'm actually pretty excited about opening more and more of the Postman platform up. Today we have a very powerful API. It's on api.postman.com, through which people are building some amazing extensions on Postman already. So we see backend services which are generating Postman collections, and that they can be integrated through the Postman API. We have our collections format, and we have an SDK for that. So there are already lots of building blocks available. And now what we are seeing are requests for further customization on Postman itself. So we are looking at that, and we'll have more to share in the coming months on the platform.
Awesome. And another question along the roadmap side. So Preetish asked that there's a GraphQL playground in Postman, but GraphQL itself provides its own playground. So are there any advantages that that Postman has over GraphQL?
Yeah, so I think I'll just go back a little bit to that starting point of Postman's founding, right? So one of the things that I discovered was being able to send a request was the starting point of everyone's API journey, right? So and there have been lots of tools to have people be at that starting point. I think what happens soon after, right, is in that experience, developers need features like the history feature that we have. They need the ability to customize collections and store them and share them with people. They need documentation features, and they need testing features. And the reason that happens is because of the fundamental nature of APIs being collaborative things, right? If you're building an API, you're probably building it for someone else. So using APIs and building APIs is always a collaborative activity, and that thing extends to all protocols and all ways in which APIs can be built. So whether it's a REST API or it's a SOAP API or it's a GraphQL API, or even if you look at microservices, whether it's Protobuf, Thrift, and we recently announced support for WebSockets and Socket.io. So the core mechanic is the same. And I think what most technologies discover is that they need to build tools, for all of this. So, I think there are interesting things to learn from other approaches. Especially I think the GraphQL community has seen a lot of growth, and we continue to increase our support there too. But we also know that eventually, the needs there will intersect with the broader API lifecycle. And the way we are building the Postman product is that it supports all of these technologies to the fullest extent possible. And Postman is happy coexisting with other tools out there. We know that eventually developers make the choice of which tools they want to use. So if there are things that we could improve upon, of course we are happy to hear on our issue trackers, and our team is on it. I'm on it. Every day, and we are constantly looking at how we can improve those experiences. And especially on GraphQL, we will have a lot of stuff coming soon.
Yeah, and I guess for the students who are watching, one thing that I think would be good for the students to get exposed to is maybe you can just give like a quick example of you speak to a lot of companies every day that are starting API first journey, right? So maybe just give like a quick background on what does that workflow actually looks like, and why is it that APIs are so important as part of that, given the transition to cloud and microservices?
Yeah. So all complex software today, is built using APIs. And while our developer journeys typically start with writing pieces of code and compiling them and building out an application, what as you see when you enter any organization of any size, that you just can't start from scratch for every single thing. In some even in and that actually is driven by what experiences you want to deliver. This situation was different 10 years ago, when the primary thing you were building was maybe just a single web app, and today customer expectations are different. So the interesting opportunity for people is to go and see how systems are built up, even as your students, and think about how you can reuse building blocks, because those are the things that every organization has already. And in some cases, we see that organizations who had monolithic pieces of software, they're breaking it down into smaller APIs so they can iterate faster. These, in fact, generate a lot of opportunities for people to come and make a bigger impact with things. The days of writing some code and shipping 3 years later are gone. Today organizations expect that they want to go to market on a much shorter time scale. And at Postman, for example, we expect that it's our mission to get developers shipping to production within a couple of months. So and the only way to do that is through APIs. So all aspects of the API lifecycle are key things that students can learn, and I think those skills are prioritized in the job market as well today, because the more aware students are, the easier time employers have then in harnessing those skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess just wrapping up the session with one last question along the skills side. As the world has become remote first, and who knows what the future looks like, but at least for the foreseeable future, it is. At least at Postman, we are, adopting a remote first environment, and a lot of companies, even large companies, have adopted the same. So like what skills do you think students should be focusing on, especially in this remote first role, whether, both on technical side, but also, in terms of soft skills?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, today's students are, much more connected, much more aware of, communicating remotely. I think I would actually go back and say that, in this environment, being focused and doing deep work is something that is harder. I know I have, before this session, I had like a million tabs open and I'm looking at Slack and I'm looking at like five different things. And I think what has happened is that because everything is done through a screen, our attention spans have become shorter. So I'd say the first, skill that we look at now, with successful people is that they're able to focus, on a specific task or on a specific goal for longer periods of time. And in terms of other skills, writing is, long form writing to communicate your ideas, being able to communicate, what you mean, being able to convince other people with that writing is something that becomes, much more important. At Postman, for example, we try to prioritize writing over meetings, and we try to, get people to consensus, like 90% of the way there before we even have a meeting. So I think writing becomes a very important skill. Um, Developing empathy and understanding where people are at, through diverse backgrounds, diverse geographies. I mean, I benefited a lot from, reading the history of places, where I'm living, or, yeah, kind of dusting off the history book might help to just understand, how things have been, to get more context of where we are today. So I think those are things that I would probably look at.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's spot on. Just, like our, even my team here, that has done an amazing job putting this event together. All of us are in multiple different locations, multiple different time zones, and all the things that you just mentioned are basically why we've been able to pull this event together. And so, it totally makes sense. I guess, I'm seeing the comments are blowing up. One question that, no surprises, will keep coming up, and maybe you can answer, is if someone wanted to work at Postman, what's the best way to do so?
We have, a pretty active internship, robust internship program that we continue to scale up. So if you are a student, you can apply for, an internship at Postman. We believe that anyone from anywhere, can make a big impact on the product, and that's how Postman has grown. So we'd love to, if you're motivated, then we have a program for you to be, part of. We have recently, we sponsored the Google Summer of Code project. We are sponsoring other projects as well, so that's another area for you to get started in. We also look at open source contributions and community contributions as starting points. I know a few folks have come in our company through that, and we love to see that. If you're already contributing, then you'll probably catch an eye of someone at Postman faster. And we have our jobs page. If you're interested in in applying for a very specific in any specific job, you can just apply there. So all of these ways are available. I would say that basically my point is that there are lots of avenues in which you can already contribute, and we look at all of those channels to make sure that we are getting motivated, excited people who can take this product and build it for the community further. It's not just working at Postman.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks so much for your time, Abhinav. I know the comments, based on the comments, I know people really enjoyed this session, and we've got a lot of exciting sessions coming up after this as well. So I appreciate you taking the time out early this morning, and thank you everyone for joining. And we'll have the next talk up shortly.